15 Most Famous Psychopaths in the History. Many of the famous psychopaths that we will name in this video have been mass leaders. Psychopathy is one of the personality disorders that most attracts people's attention. There are many movies and several television series that show these characters, such as The Silence of the Lambs, Dexter, or The Following. However, these people are not so rare. It is believed that more than 1% of the population are psychopaths, and that up to 4% of political and business leaders are. Already as children they show the typical personality traits of psychopathy, which should not be confused with sociopathy. Number 1. Adolf Hitler. He was the creator of Nazism, the Chancellor of Germany from 1933 and Führer from 1934 until his death in 1945. He started World War II by invading Poland. By the time the war ended, millions of Jews, Slavs, Gypsies, homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, communists, and other groups had perished in the Holocaust. More than 5 million Jews were murdered, some 3 million in extermination centers and labor camps, 1,400,000 in mass shootings, and more than 600,000 in the ghettos. It is estimated that the number of victims was almost 6 million. By the end of the war, Hitler's violent policies of territorial conquest and racial subjugation had killed between 55 and 60 million people, about 2% of the world's population at the time, mostly civilians, as well as a considerable degree of destruction of European cities. What is little known is that Hitler probably did not give a direct order to exterminate the Jews, although he did know what was being done. According to Wikipedia, his role in this is less obvious than it may seem at first glance. Historians have not reached any clear agreement regarding the degree of Hitler's direct intervention in directing the policy of extermination, which includes the debate about whether there was an order on his part. However, his statements justifying the genocide are certain, especially concentrated during the first months of 1942, and with direct references that demonstrate his knowledge of it. Number 2. Elizabeth Bathory, the Blood Countess. She was a Hungarian aristocrat, belonging to one of the most powerful families in her country. She holds the Guinness World Record for the woman who has killed the most in human history, with 630 deaths. Obsessed with beauty and maintaining youth, she used the blood of her young maids and wards to stay young. Between 1604 and 1610, Elizabeth's agents dedicated themselves to providing her with young people between 9 and 16 years old for her bloody rituals. He used an instrument of torture called Iron Maiden, which was a kind of sarcophagus that reflected the silhouette of a woman and had sharp spikes inside. This contraption was opened to introduce the victim and then lock her up so that the spikes were embedded in her body. Number 3. Joseph Mengele. He is infamous for selecting victims to be executed in the gas chambers and for his scientific and often deadly experiments on prisoners. According to a prisoner doctor at Auschwitz, he was able to be very kind to the children so that they would like him. He gave them sugar. He thought about the daily details of their lives, and he did things that we would really like to admire. And then the smoke from the crematoriums, and the next day or half an hour later, those children were sent there. Number 4. Jack the Ripper. He was a serial killer of unknown identity who committed several crimes in 1888, mainly in the Whitechapel district of London. According to Thomas Bond, the doctor who investigated the bodies of the victims, the killer, on his outward appearance, is most likely harmless-looking, a well-groomed, respectable-looking middle-aged man. He may be in the habit of wearing a cape or coat because otherwise the blood on his hands and clothes would have drawn the attention of passers-by. His victims were prostitutes, whom he killed and removed their sexual organs. His crimes were never solved. Number 5. Joseph Stalin. He was president of the Council of Ministers of the Soviet Union from May 6, 1941 to March 5, 1953, when he died. It is estimated that a minimum of around 10 million deaths, 4 million from repression and 6 from hunger, are attributable to his repressive regime. From a young age, he demonstrated a rigid, cold, calculating, and reluctant personality to show his emotions. He demonstrated, throughout his life, an almost total lack of affection and emotional detachment to those who were considered to be in his inner circle, although externally he seemed trustworthy. He was paranoid and saw enemies in everyone. He committed terrible abuses against the Russian and Soviet population. Number 6. Ivan the Terrible. He was the first Russian king to bear the title of Tsar since 1547 and is considered one of the creators of the Russian state. According to unbiased Polish writers, he boasted of deflowering more than 1,000 virgins and subsequently murdering the resulting children, thus showing his disturbance. In a fit of rage, on November 16, 1580, he fatally struck his eldest son with his cane. He also killed several of his enemies and friends, which made Ivan even more psychopathic. Number 7. The Zodiac Killer. He was a serial killer who stalked Northern California between December 1968 and October 1969. In a letter supposedly from him, he confessed to the murder of 37 victims, although the only confirmed ones were 4 men and 3 women. Zodiac was estimated to be between 20 and 30 years old at the time of his crimes. That he was white, corpulent, with brown hair, with knowledge of cipher languages, and a great intelligence. Number 8. Henry VI. He was King of England and Lord of Ireland from April 22, 1509 until his death. The harsh and tyrannical character of this monarch, especially in his later years, was not an obstacle to the fidelity and affection of his people. He was also known for chopping off heads. He was married 6 times and cut off the heads of 2 of his wives. Number 9. Charles Manson. He was a known American criminal, mastermind of several homicides, including the macabre murder of actress Sharon Tate, wife of film director Roman Polanski, and her guests at his Beverly Hills residence on August 9, 1969. The following night, Manson entered the home of businessman Lino LaBianca and his wife Rosemary outside Los Angeles, assuring them that he would not harm them. He tied them up and let in Tex, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten, who stabbed the pair to death. He psychologically dominated a group of young people who were called family, and they were the ones who committed the murders. Number 10. Mao Zedong. He was the top leader of the Communist Party of China and the People's Republic of China from 1949 to 1976. It is estimated that no less than 30 million people died of starvation due to his policies. Researchers Chang and Halliday consider Mao a tyrannical dictator who would have been directly responsible for the death of more than 70 million Chinese. Number 11. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was one of the best-known and most prolific American serial killers. He confessed to the murder of 36 people, but the police believe there are more. He was charming and handsome, which made it easy for victims to trust him. It took years to catch him, because his image did not correspond to that of a brutal murderer. Number 12. Albert DeSalvo, the Boston Strangler. From an early age, he tortured animals, one of the most relevant signs of psychopathy. They called him the Strangler because he strangled women. He was a misogynist, he hated the female figure, and that's why he killed them. He murdered at least 13 women. He died in jail, stabbed, in 1973. Number 13. Prince Vlad, the Impaler. Bram Stoker, the author of Dracula, was based on this 15th century ruler of Transylvania, Romania, who fought against the Ottomans. He was extremely bloodthirsty and brutal. To set an example, he impaled his enemies alive and left them to die a slow and painful death. It is estimated that he impaled around 20,000 people and killed more than 80,000. Number 14. John Wayne Gacy, the Killer Clown. John Wayne Gacy, nicknamed the Killer Clown for his work as a children's party entertainer dressed as a clown, killed 33 men over the course of 6 years. This psychopath buried his victims in the basement of his house, some in the garden, and, since he couldn't fit any more bodies, he took his last victims to a nearby river and threw them into the current. A demonstration of his psychopathic personality were his last words before being executed in 1994. "Killing me will not bring back any of the victims. The state is killing me. Kiss my ass. They will never know where the others are." Number 15. Edmund Kemper, the Schoolgirl Killer. Edmund Kemper, nicknamed the Killer of Schoolgirls, ranks 15th in this ranking. Kemper displayed all the hallmarks of psychopathy from an early age. He tortured and killed animals, provoked sexual rights with his sister's dolls, and threatened to kill teachers and acquaintances. With an IQ of 140, Kemper was a serial killer who was able to gain the trust of both his acquaintances and his victims. For example, he befriended his psychologist and ended up working as an assistant for him. At just 15 years old, he murdered his grandmother and grandfather. 8 years later, at the age of 23, he murdered several schoolgirls and students that he found on the highway. Once they were killed, he would take them to his apartment to practice necrophilia and, later, dismember them and throw their bodies down ravines. And these are the 15 most psychopaths in the history. And you, how many of them did you know? Leave us your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Beautiful Minds for more interesting videos. See you soon.